Hey everybody, welcome to the Purpose People podcast. I've got Ryan Rubi, who's a copywriter. He comes along to Humans quite a lot, so it's great to get you on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, Daryl. It's lovely to be here.
So you're a bit of a pro about this, aren't you?
I think that's a little bit of an overstatement. So most of my work actually was behind the camera. So we were talking a little bit before we started recording about how I used to work in TV news.
Yeah, so was that what you set out to do? I mean, like when you were at like school and stuff, what was the dream? What was the thought process?
Honestly, that was not it at all.
Right. Okay. So what was the dream?
So I really didn't know what I wanted to do in school. And so it wasn't until high school that I started kind of finding my own thing. And so I was doing all these different sorts of activities. So I was a theater kid, so I did a lot of plays and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, I did a lot of debate and forensics, which not like forensics as in like crime scene stuff, but it's a thing in the United States on top of debate where you can do either speaking events or acting events.
Okay.
And so I got really involved in those things. And I also got involved in journalism as well.
Wow. So, I mean, so obviously you ended up being a writer. So was journalism like the first sort of steps into that world of you enjoyed writing?
I think so, right?
Yeah.
So high school was more about me exploring and kind of finding what I wanted to do. And so when I finally went to university, you know, I did get a scholarship for acting and I was double majoring in theater and journalism for a little bit.
Wow.
But eventually just decided, you know what, probably what's best is to do something a little bit more practical. So I focused on TV journalism to try and combine the two. And that's what I ended up doing for the first part of my career.
Wow. So in terms of that journey then, you know, what sort of stories were you covering? Like, were they like deep stories or were they kind of lighthearted stories? What kind of...
I mean, I think when you're doing a newscast, right, there are all sorts of things. You know, this is not like network television, that sort of thing. This is local TV news.
Yeah.
So I started, my hometown is in Kansas, right? And so, you know, I grew up in Wichita. And that was the first station that I worked for. And so I was producing the morning show for 2 years there.
Right.
And this is, you know, we cover 2/3 of Kansas, you know, excluding like the Kansas City metro area and the Topeka area. And, you know, it was usually just, you know, local TV news stories, a lot of spot news. And then there's always some sort of lighthearted stuff at the end because it's a morning show. You got to make people feel good.
Yeah. It's like Lost Cat Found.
Lost Cat Found. You know, that's funny enough. So, I don't think that I did a lost cat found story in Kansas.
So
but
there's still lost cats in Kansas?
No. Yeah, there are, believe me. But it was at my second station where we did put that on our late show newscast one time. So
you're doing the producing then. I mean, obviously that's you know, that's quite a lot of moving parts. What in terms of viewing figures? Because obviously we live in the UK, right? So local news for the UK is you know, is tiny by comparison to the States. So what would be like a morning show? What would be the viewing figures or something like that?
I mean, I think, you know, one of the things that you have to realize, Daryl, is that when I was in TV news, so the times were really changing. So I was in from about 2005 to 2017.
Yeah.
And so when I first got in, it was definitely more of like a 90s model. Sure, there was internet and you would definitely write to the website. But there was no social media at the time. You know, you had Facebook and MySpace. It was in its infancy.
Yeah.
But news wasn't embracing that.
No.
And the name of the game changed over the course of my career in TV news.
Yeah.
And so the numbers definitely dwindled quite a bit. But, you know, if you got like a 9 share, that would be something that would be absolutely amazing. But I would say that the shows that I typically did not perform that well. And that's not to say that's anything on my part, but that's just a sign of just the viewership that was happening at the time.
Yeah, but I mean, let's fast forward to now. I mean, you know, like even let's say Sky Television, they got a thing called AdSmart, which is serving up algorithmic ads based on a profile. So like when growing up, we'd all watch the same ads if we were watching the same channels. Now I'll be watching ads here that my next door neighbors will be watching something completely different. So I think the internet is highly influenced even where TV's headed, and they've almost had to catch up. So I'm finding what was seemingly impossible to get reach. Like for example, if I was going to say, I want to make an ad and I want to put it on television, it would cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's more accessible because not so many people are going down TV. It's almost like TV is seen as traditional media now, Whereas, the internet is the internet, YouTube and that sort of stuff is where most people advertise. It's definitely shifted, but I'm starting to see a little bit of a shift back, that TV's become a bit more accessible again.
Really?
Yeah, just because I've had a look at one thing, and then I'm now getting invited to stuff with ITV. They're trying to attract local people to advertise as well as national TV, because they have the ability to serve up ads based on algorithm. So they have that intelligence, whereas before it was just one way. We just press play and we just broadcast to 60 million households.
Yeah.
Now they can segment it and say, well, of that, there's 5 million households that are into cats, so let's send it to them.
Yeah.
But so it's definitely shifting. But yeah, I mean, I would say from 2005 to 2017, I mean, that seismic change in terms of the way we consume media. Social media now is almost like that's the primary screen, isn't it, on our phone? Whereas the primary screen back then may have been on television.
Yeah, 100%. At one of my last stations, so my major last stop before I moved away from the United States was in Sacramento. And, while the station I worked for wasn't like the number one station in the area, as far as our digital presence, that's where we ranked. And so, we were always like really big about promoting on social media and being web first, and even like doing some innovative stuff like doing digital live newscasts.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I've got a friend who lives in a place called Loomis, which is just outside Sacramento. So I've been to Sacramento. Yeah. So I've been to the major, the old town and the new town and stuff like that. So yeah, and it's amazing because you're walking down like this shopping mall or type thing, and right in the middle is the basketball team.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Like Old Sac and the arena is like really, really close. It's definitely within walking distance.
Yeah. But it was just like, oh wow, we don't. It's very rare that you got like a big stadium in the middle of a shopping complex. I mean, I know some of the newer clubs that have built stadiums have gone that way. So there's a team up north called Bolton.
Yeah.
And they were probably one of the first to sort of like put their football stadium. And you look across and it's almost like the equivalent of a shopping centre next door to it. So it's like you shop and watch the game. So
that's the American way.
There you go. Exactly. So yeah, it's quite interesting to see that start to come over here. So you're in TV and you're producing and stuff like that. And you said you made a decision to move to the UK. So how did that all come about?
Okay, so I need to go a little bit back, but the short answer to that question, though, is that why I'm in the UK is my wife.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So after we got married, I said, hey, where do you want to move? And she said, Bristol. I was like, what? Yeah, no, really. She said Bristol, of all places.
And is she American?
No, she's not American.
Where's she from?
She's from Hong Kong.
Oh, right, okay. But she said Bristol.
Yeah, she said Bristol.
Wow.
Yeah, she went to uni here. She did a work study here. So this is her home in the UK.
Yeah. So what did you say to that? Like, let's do it? Or were you a little bit like, oh my gosh? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I tried to like say, you don't want to do like LA or London or anything like that. She was very firm on Bristol. And I'm the type of guy who always likes to do an adventure. And so I said, let's do it.
Wow. So when did you arrive in Bristol?
So I officially moved to Bristol in September 2023.
Right. And so when you moved to Bristol, was that when you started freelance writing? Was that the shift?
It took a little bit of time. So I spent a lot of my career working with one of the top tech companies in China called Anchor Innovations. And so I worked on a lot of really good product launches with them. And I'm really grateful for that experience. And so I wanted to also expand my reach. And I started in 2024 reaching out to a lot of local agencies like yourself.
Yeah.
And so eventually, you did respond and you got me starting to go to Humans, which is just an amazing event. But just to answer your question, though, that's definitely how it got started, though.
Yeah, I mean, after the podcast, you can speak to Claire because Claire looks after our content. So she's always looking to engage and talk to people. So from my perspective, then, you've got this thing of TV producing that you were in from 2005 to 2017, and you've seen a seismic change in that. Yeah. Now you've moved into content copywriting and stuff like that, and now there's this big ugly monster called AI. So another seismic change.
Right.
So what are your thoughts? How are you coping with that? Do you see it as a superpower? Do you see it as a threat? What are your thoughts on the AI scene?
I think that that's a really good question. You know, I think it's also something that's really profound, and we have to really analyze it really deeply. I think from the start, I think that AI can be a good research tool if you take it with a grain of salt, because AI is prone to what's called hallucinations, right? If we don't completely, let me go back. If we can't completely trust what we hear from AI. You have to go back and you have to do a Google search just to kind of verify that it is, because it will make stuff up. Even if you input your data into it, it will then make up some figures, and you have to double check what it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
But as far as its ability to write, I think that there are definitely two schools of thought on that. Some people think like, oh my gosh, this is great. It's so democratic. It's empowering. It's helping non-writers be writers. But I think it takes a lot of the human creativity out of writing as well.
Yeah.
And that's what's important. That's what really makes us human. It really makes us stand out. It really brings out the creativity. Yeah. And all AI can really do is just iterate what's been done before.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. You know, my first real deep experience of AI was a few years ago when I did a project around traffic management.
Yeah.
So the most congested city in the world is, guess?
Los Angeles? Dubai? Oh, sorry, not Dubai, Mumbai.
No.
Don't know.
London.
Oh, London, okay.
So London is the most congested city in the world. And basically I was doing like lots of research in and around traffic and the most congested cities. Bristol is the 8th most congested city in the whole of Europe. So, which, if you've driven through Bristol, you would understand.
Yeah.
It's pretty rough. But the point of it is that that's when I've kind of got into its power in terms of searching for information. I think one of the key prompts I found was that, you know, where are you getting that information from? You know, please cite the resource bases. And so what I would use it is almost like a deeper search engine, but I wouldn't rely on it for anything else. Right. So it allowed me then to discover a thing called INREX, and then the index allowed me to be able to, you know, look at the data and work out the data to begin to tell a story about traffic tech.
Yeah.
And the thoughts there was that this is really good. But when I started to see it, just people going, hey, I've written a book in 8 minutes. I'm like, no, you haven't written a book in 8 minutes. You've just regurgitated a whole load of stuff and then, you know, and looked at it. And I think for me, it was very much like, if you want to dress smartly or you're dressing for the occasion, you go in and you pick your shirt and your tie and you get prepared and you get, and that's how we should view AI. But what people are doing is they're rushing into a wardrobe, they're chucking everything on and they're going to the thing and they're completely dressed inappropriately and they don't fit. And that's how people are using AI at the moment. So I think for me, AI is great for helping you with automated tasks. Yeah. But there is this time to set those things up. And you're right. I don't think you can rely on it 100%. Yes, it will get better. But at the same time, the interesting thing is that it's only as good as the sum of the information that's in it, right? Yeah. So if there's loads of information that is in error, then of course that's just going to magnify the errors. Yeah. So going back to what you said is that, you know, doing the research yourself is absolutely needed. And I think the creativity aspect of thing, yeah, you need a human, 100%. And I think, you know, whether it's script writing or creative writing, you can't come up with human stories. You can make them up, right? Yeah. But there's so many nuances to a human story. Like you can tell your story, I can tell my story, and that's what makes it human. So when I read it, I can tell. And even now, you can prompt it, you can make it sound more, I don't know, more gangster, or you can make it sound more chatty, or you can do all those different prompts. Yes. But it still feels inauthentic, you know. And I think, you know, I'd start reading an article and I just switch off because it's just regurgitated information. So I think creative writing for me, and I guess I'm at heart, I'm a creative as well. I think, you know, if you are creative, you want to read the creativity, and I think that's where AI misses it. I think AI is great in terms of for data management and that sort of stuff. You know, it makes absolute sense. So yeah, you know, there are platforms out there that do logos, for example, and yeah, they're still okay. Yes, you know what I mean? Right. You still need that creativity of dreaming it up and being clever and stuff like that. So,
right. You know, I think you have to dive into what the essence of a brand is. And specifically, you know, for logos, it's about the values, it's about the color scheme and what brings out those values
Yeah.
and so forth. And with copywriting, it's about what is the mission statement, what is the key message or the goal that you're trying to drive across, and what is a way that you can write that in a way that fits the tone of voice of the brand and accomplish that goal.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, for me, I want a brand if you've got copy that is intrinsic to the brand, I want people to feel like more of a part of it. They feel like they belong to whatever they're buying into. And I don't think AI does that very well. It kind of, you can bang outlines together.
Yeah.
But it's not, I think it's not there. It's like, Rob, who's videographer and video editor and head of production in our team, we've experimented with video editing and stuff, and we like, it doesn't quite, it's not.
Oh, so you tried doing Sora.
So yeah, we've played with Sora.
Yeah.
I've played with Sora, but again, it's got its own look to it, right?
Yeah.
And you can change the looks, but you just know, and it's not there yet. And I think it can get you out of holes here and there, but there's nothing like setting it up properly and doing all the lighting and getting the human contact and the performances. I think, I think you'll get. I think what you'll end up with is like, you'll get a lot of throwaway content,
right,
that's generated there. But I don't think it's ever going to replace like a film event, for example, where it's like, a Christopher Nolan movie. Christopher Nolan is going to keep making movies that way.
Yes, he
till
is.
he finishes. Yeah, he's not going to go, we can get rid of all these cameras. I'll sit there and do loads of prompts.
Yeah,
no, he's not going to do that.
No, absolutely not.
So yeah,
I think that there's something really special about a film set too. To me, it's really one of the most magical places you can be.
So you obviously copywriting and stuff, but you mentioned off camera that you'd written some scripts.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So part of the thing is that when I was in television news, it wasn't, even though I did do it for so long, it wasn't something that I particularly enjoyed. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up finding some time. And when I was in Louisville, I would go to coffee shops and I started writing this parody script. Okay. And then some things happened. I took a gap year, traveled around the world, and came back. And then when I moved to Sacramento, I started getting into voiceover and started getting into film. And one day I was sitting around a voiceover table read for kind of like a podcast play like this. Yeah. They're more popular in the UK than they are in the States.
Okay.
But the guy, we were just killing some time. And I said, hey, would you guys mind taking a look at my script? And then he gave me a few pointers and I did some revisions on it. And then I made some connections and felt, let's go ahead and do this. And so I put together my film script. I fundraised, on crowdfunding.
Wow.
Made it work and did a film premiere, got a local interview on an NPR station, and then got into 2 film festivals.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So what sort of, film festivals for me, was that just in the States or was it?
Well, one was in the States and one was in Canada.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you've been through that process. So is there a desire going forward to keep doing that, or as well as copyright? Is that, or you've done that rodeo, you're done?
Right. So I think at this stage, I'm kind of at a crossroads in a new chapter. And so what I'm really looking for at the moment is just looking for clients who need creative assistance.
Yeah.
Whether they need a producer, whether they need a copywriter, whether they just need somebody to kind of guide them through a path, then I can be there to help them do that. And it's about fulfilling that sort of creative problem solving that they might have.
Yeah, yeah. So go back to the film set then. You said, yeah. So when you started talking about that, you kind of lit up. So tell me what you tell me more about the film set scenario.
I mean, there's nothing more magical. Like I said, it's about having all the lights around you, seeing this world come to life that is just, used to be just a pair of blank walls. And so, for our film that we did, what was it? We rented out a floor in a vacant law firm in downtown Sacramento, and we turned it into a newsroom.
Oh, wow.
And so we printed off this giant sticker, which we pasted onto the wall. And we didn't repaint the walls, so it's this kind of like this really odd yellow color. But for what we were doing, it worked. And it was just somewhat really magical.
Yeah, yeah. So we've just been doing a load of filming for company. We've got a lady coming on later about it. But just getting the crew together with the lighting, the video team, the runners. It was just, you're right. By the end of that week, it felt like a family. It was a strange thing, and unless you're on it, you can't understand it. But I think for me now, when I saw the Emmys like a few weeks after, and I looked at it for the first time with that different eye, and I go, that's why they're all so close. Yeah. Because I couldn't understand it. But if you've been working together for like 6 months solidly, sometimes working 12 hours, 14 hours, of course the relationships are there. So, obviously it hurts if the film doesn't do well, but if it does do well, it's worth celebrating. So for me, I was like, I got what it's like. And I think one of the things that kept coming out from some of the guys that had written was that to hear the words that they'd written on the page come out with an actor was just like, oh my gosh, it's like they're speaking, this script's come to life. It was just words on a page, and now they can see it in a camera, and it's like, wow, you can create worlds, which is really, really exciting. So in terms of like living in Bristol then and building new connections and stuff, what would you say to someone moving from another country? Because obviously the world's a bit more transient, and there are people like entrepreneurs or business owners probably thinking the same thing. Do I move the other way? Do I go from the UK to the US? What would you say are the like tips that you might have for someone who's considering moving countries? Or what are the sort of the main things you could give and add to our audience?
Sure. So I think that's a really good question, because it's something that I've done quite a bit over the course of my life, moving not only to just countries, but different cities as well. Yeah. And so I think the key thing is to really find your own personal interest and then get involved. So for me, one of those interests is improv. So when I moved to Shenzhen, China, I didn't know anybody, nor did I speak the language. Yeah. And so, but I got involved with the improv scene there. And that actually was what led me to get my job at Anchor, because one of the guys on the improv troupe worked at Anchor and said, hey, we need a copywriter. Are you interested? So there you go. So you get connections that way. And it's through like not necessarily even business connections, but just the things that you do. And because you have a passion and you're putting yourself forward into something that you truly believe in, then that will work wonders for you down the line.
So how did you meet your wife then?
So I've shared this story enough that it's okay, but we met on a dating app, and luckily the algorithm led us to swipe right on each other.
Ah, okay. Yeah. And then where were you then? Which country were you in at the time?
So I was in Shenzhen, which is right across the border from Hong Kong. Right. And so she was living and working in Hong Kong, and we had a cross-border relationship for a few years. Yeah. And so it was, then COVID happened, which was a very difficult time. We actually were separated for 22 months. Oh, and, wow. And so, but we kept in touch with each other every single day through text, video calls. And then we had to end up getting married to see each other again. But it was one of the best decisions of my life, and I don't regret it for a second.
Wow. So 22 months.
Yeah.
And you did it. You got there.
Yeah. No, we did. We got there.
and then she said, I want to move to Bristol.
Yeah. Then she said, I want to move to Bristol. But yeah, it was, I think COVID was really telling, because, I can't say what the experience was here in the UK, because I wasn't here. But I think in China and in Hong Kong, there were a lot of couples who were growing further apart. And when it initially happened, we were in Hong Kong. And instead of going immediately back to Shenzhen, which had been in lockdown, I stayed in Hong Kong. Yeah. And, we grew closer together. And so that just shows the strength of our relationship, and there's nobody else who I'd rather be with.
No, that's a movie script waiting to happen, I reckon. So in terms of like writing copy and content, then what would you say are some tips that you can give the audience? Because often people try and write copy themselves, and there is the element to do that, like if you're just starting out or whatever. But what do you think a copywriter can bring to an audience that maybe someone that's a graphic designer and trying to do it themselves can't? What would you say you could do in terms of, as a copywriter, how you can lift what they're trying to achieve?
I think the first thing you have to do is you have to consider the target audience and what the target audience wants. It's really, you kind of have to get rid of the idea of like, oh, I need to put in my brand every single little moment because it turns off the audience.
Yeah.
So instead, it's about what is something that's going to really speak to that person who is going to read your copy. And the main practical tip that I would give is don't use your first draft. Your first draft will suck.
Yeah.
It's not good. Just take it, let it sit, and then come back to it and rewrite it. And then you will be very surprised at what comes out.
Yeah.
So don't just let your first attempt be it.
Yeah. I mean, there was a guy, I can't remember his last name. Is it Taki? Mm-hmm. He did Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had said exactly the same. He writes the entire script for the movie and then throws it away. Yeah. And then everyone's looking at him, what do you mean? He said, well, I don't really throw it away. I just put it in a drawer. It's out the way and I'll rarely go back to it. He said, I'll write it because I'll get it all down and then I'll rewrite it again and then he'll get rid of it again. And then he'll write it as in, right now I'm going to write this, because he said the stuff I remember sticks. Yeah. And the stuff that I've forgotten was just filler anyway. And I thought this is a really good approach to just write that first draft and not trust it. Yeah. Which goes back to the AI thing that people first draft, that's it, it's done. Because the whole premise behind AI is I want to save time. Yeah. And I think we don't think about the process of writing. We just spit words out on the page, but the process of writing that you're saying is that you write your first draft, you go away, you think about it, and then you start writing what you really want to write, so to speak.
Yeah. I think for me, what I find is that when I come back to a draft, I find that the first original draft tends to be pretty generic and just doesn't really have the polish that it needs, right? And so when you're able to go back and then rewrite everything, then that's when it comes to life. That's when the words lift up from the page.
So how do you balance really nice content, which is well written, with algorithms and SEO and keywords and all the other wonderful stuff? How do you find a happy balance between it not sounding mechanical, but obviously being found, let's say, on the internet? How do you look at it that way?
That's a good question. For me, the process is more just innate, and just because I've just been doing it for so long that it just is. I think to really just put it this way is, if you are going to write something and you're just going to throw in a bunch of keywords, that's not the way to do it. Yeah. Right? With Google's last update that it did, they really just penalize that. If you want to do keyword stuffing, that's just so old school. Don't do that. Yeah. It's more about the content of your message and really making that stand out more than anything else. Yeah. So that's what I would just suggest, is just trying to make it just sound natural as best as you can.
So some people, the thing I've realized is that they also rate readability as well as just the SEO stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think not enough attention is played on the readability aspect. Right. Which is, back in the day of websites, going into the SEO, people used to have keywords where they would put them on a white background. Mm-hmm. So they put white text on a white background and the keyword all over the back of it. This is the dark arts of 20 years ago. Yeah. Now it's a case of there's keywords and key phrases, which is changed things. But I think at the heart of it is that you've got to think about leaving someone in a much better place than when they first arrived at the article. Right. And that's what people miss the most, is that I am there to add value and add enough value that go, hey, I like what these guys are saying and what these guys are talking about. Right. And for me, that's the human part of what we're trying to do, when you're writing content.
You're absolutely right. The article is essentially an interruption. Yeah. Or particularly an ad. Yeah. And if your ad doesn't leave somebody in a better place after they've read it, then it kind of was a waste of time. So really make it special, really make it stand out. Yeah.
And then what about yourself in terms of, what would you say, people can write LinkedIn newsletters, for example. Yeah. People write social media content. What would you advise someone to do it there? Do you write for the platform? Do you write for the person? Do you write for the algorithm? A social media post can be this long, and a text can be. Do you have a common theme and then write for multiple areas, or are you just I'm just focused on writing ad copy?
I think it really just depends on what type of person you are, really. I think the first challenge is, do you have the motivation to really just stick with one thing and do it? because that's going to be the driving factor. So if you're really confident, like I'm going to do blogs or I'm going to do LinkedIn heavily, then just do that. But if you're trying to play the algorithm and really trying to do realism, not realism per se, but if you're really trying to do something authentic in the world of AI, I think video is the way to go, because you're seeing the increase in desire for video demand to go up. And, as we were just talking about, Sora can't really do everything. It might be able to do a little bit of minor fixes, but you can tell.
Yeah.
And so video is really one of the few ways that we have authenticity, when you can literally just put a prompt into ChatGPT and have something come up.
Yeah, and I think that, like with video content, I mean, when you're doing podcasts and stuff like conversations like this, what I love about that is that you're generating content, you've got conversation, and you can take that one piece of content and then you can turn that into a blog, you can turn that into a post on social, and ultimately that you can use it in multiple places. And I think it's the thing with video, maybe video first is a great way of start with video and then disseminate to the different channels that you want. Not everyone can do video, but I think it's an underrated thing that you could take a podcast and produce content from it.
100%. You can easily take a video, right? You write your video script.
Yeah.
And then from that, you take your video script and then you do a little bit of rewriting to make it work as a blog, because obviously not everything is going to work well. When we're having a conversation, there are going to be some natural breaks and pauses and things that don't really sound well when they're written directly into a blog. Like broken sentences, like commas, that sort of thing. If you're a grammarian, you like want to go into it. Like that's what I'm talking about right now. But yes, you're absolutely right. It's 100% recyclability and very easy to do.
Yeah. So what's the future look like for you then, Ryan? Because you said you're at a crossroads. So where do you see yourself, say, in 5 years' time? Have you got a plan? Have you got a vision for where that could take you?
So right now I've got a couple of ideas that I'm exploring. So, I'm kind of taking a pause at the moment, doing a little bit of self-reflection about what it is that I want to do personally. Yeah. And so, like I said, I want to really just work with brands or clients that are really looking for that creative solution, whether they're in travel or tech or with the local agency. And in the meantime, I'm helping my wife with her pet sitting business. And so that's really nice, always having something furry and cuddly to pet.
Yeah. So tell us about the pet sitting business, because my daughter was she's bought a few little things for to do something similar for herself, like just in the local area. Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about that. Is there a need for it? A lot of people,
absolutely. Yeah? So kudos to my wife. She is a wonderful, wonderful human being. I truthfully was very skeptical about the idea when she proposed it. I couldn't believe there was a demand or market for this, but it is insane. Things have changed so much, like from when we were kids, and maybe you might have a neighbor who pays you like $20, please go feed my dog from time to time, but nowadays people want 24/7 care of their pets. And they want you to stay overnight in their house because they realize that their dog might have anxiety, or their cat may not really, handle being alone for that time, or there are exotic animals like birds. There are tons of things to think about nowadays.
Wow. And I guess because we travel a lot more. Yeah. And so we had a dog growing up, so we didn't go away too much because for that reason. Mum and Dad never wanted to put the dog in a kennel. They felt, no, they can't do that. But the option was, okay, well, then we're not going away. Or if we're going away, we're all going together with a dog. Yeah. And so I think just the hassle of it, they were just like, we didn't go away that much. But they can be like, if you get a dog, for example, the tendency of saying, well, if I get a dog, then I'm trapped. Yeah. I can't travel. But obviously if there's services like your wife's, then that can help you there. So are you writing any content for her and Copy?
Yeah, so I'm helping her a little bit with the social media page and helping her with the messaging behind it, helping her with some flyers and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's that like, that dynamic between you and your wife working?
I'll plead the fifth. No, she's wonderful. She's really wonderful to work with. And so, my wife has a really great personality. And so it's about really making that flourish on camera. She definitely has the most bubbly and sparkly personality that you've met. and just super cheerful, always lights up the room.
Oh, that's cool. Well, we have to get her on the podcast because
Yes.
that'd be great and find out a little bit more about her story and her journey. So you're now working in like the UK, obviously. You said you've been working for companies in China and America. What are the biggest differences in terms of content that you find between the countries? Do we process content differently with a different audience in a different country? Do we have different priorities? What's your experience?
So for the companies that I worked with in China, there were mainly focused on Chinese audiences, with the exception of Anchor. Anchor does have like domestic as far as in China. It does have domestic sales, but my Mandarin is not conversational, so I wasn't writing in Chinese.
Yeah.
So, but for Western audiences, they need people like me to come in and help educate them on how to best write toward audiences in North America or Europe or Australia. Yeah. And I don't think there's necessarily a difference in the way that we consume content, but there are some minor differences though. So for instance, I think Americans will be more tolerant of direct sales. So you can go in over the top and be very hard, and that might be a little bit expected. I think when we, for instance, as Americans, go buy a car, that's what we expect, is that sort of hard sales approach.
Yeah.
But especially like if you are in a B2B environment, that's definitely a turnoff. And certainly here in the UK, I think that the tolerance for that type of mindset is pretty low.
Yeah, I would say that very, very much value-led and empathy-led.
Yes.
With a very soft ask would get your blog read again. But
Yes.
if you're a hard ask, you're done. You know,
Yeah.
people are not interested in that. But I guess that's a bit like networking, like in terms of networking, when people will go into a networking environment and are handing out business cards to close a deal in that 40-minute meeting.
Yeah.
People are like going, oh, I don't want to talk to them again. Whereas if there are people there that want to build a relationship, get to know you, talk through, meet you 3 or 4 times, then have a one-to-one, then the chances are that something may come of that. That's my experience, certainly in the UK. I'd say with the US, I find that you can be a bit more direct. I agree. I think you do need to be a bit more to the point. I mean,
yes,
the Brits have got a very way of going around the houses as well, because they're almost the other way. They're scared to ask. They don't want to offend everybody. So certainly, we've been writing content for a few US clients, so we've even ourselves have had to say, well, you need to be a bit more direct. In terms of what's the CTA. Now the CTA, get the CTA in there. Yes, you can build for a time as when you're trying to establish the brand and values, but they're expecting an ask. So not to have one is, that's not good either. So I think, what about, I'm quite intrigued though with China though. So is that writing to the Chinese? Is that, if you're writing to the local Chinese, what is it very similar to the UK, or is it very similar to the US? What's that like? Culturally?
Well, I can't answer that question because, so my 2 jobs that I did in China before Anchor. So I was a video presenter for a company that was doing English videos to kids. And so I was essentially an actor doing skits. Oh, nice. And then the second thing I did in China was I was teaching drama and speech to all ages. Oh, right.
So, okay.
So from 8 to 18, we did some contract work for a high school and was teaching improv to them, that sort of stuff. But as far as writing to local Chinese audiences for marketing purposes, I can't answer that question, unfortunately.
No, that's fine. So from yourself then, in terms of where you want to take things, you want to be involved more in creative writing. Do you think that you've got the thing of scripts? Have you got any scripts bubbling up or any side projects there that you kind of don't want to leave it forever? Have you got anything that you...
Yeah, I've definitely been accumulating some story ideas, whether that goes into a novel, whether that goes into a movie script, we'll see. So not anything that I'm willing to share right now, but I've got a couple of ideas that are brewing.
And what about a book? Have you ever thought about writing books?
I have thought about writing books, and so it's something that I've definitely explored in the past. And again, some of those ideas might be better suited for a novel instead of a movie script. It is about exploring the medium and seeing which one is right.
So you wake up in the morning on a Monday. What's the thing that excites you the most about your job? Well, what would be the best job you could have in terms of writing now, as in today? So you wake up, you could get any job you could do in the right. What would it be? What would be the one thing that you could say, you know what, I'm really looking forward to doing it? What would it be?
I think writing something that inspires people, writing something that really matters and gets people motivated and drives them to take action. That would be the thing that really makes me proud of what I do.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that I've tried to explore over the last 20 years is some inner truth, and really trying to come to understand, who I am, my relationship with the world around me, and how we all function as a society. And writing something that might be profound, and writing something that really sticks into the minds of others and really inspires them. Maybe it creates a spark. Maybe it drives them to do something better. Like, that would be something that would make me very proud and excited to get up in the morning.
I guess that's probably the journalist in you still there.
Yeah.
Still, you haven't lost the journalistic side of things. I would say we're in a society that seems to, well, depending on which side you want to look at, but it's like there's this division kind of narrative. And I'm kind of like, well, do you have to choose? Do you have to be one side or the other in everything? Can we not just have conversations? And I think we're losing that art, I think.
I believe that's 100% the case. And so I think that there is definitely a problem with division. And one of the things that I had an issue with in America, and one of the things that my film touched on, was sensationalism. And I think that one of the things that I really appreciated about being in Britain, I know there were probably tons of people in your audience who might disagree, but I'm looking at this from an outsider as an American, is that I appreciate the dryness of the BBC News. The only real comparison is CBS's morning show and CBS's 60 Minutes in America. It's very dry content, but really that's how the news should be. Yeah. Because when you throw in all this excess emotion and all this sensationalism, this is what drives, this is what I think is part of the reason for our division today.
Yeah.
And you're right. We have lost our ability to have conversations. I think that was the source of it. And there have been exacerbating factors since then as well.
So and I think that's maybe the negative, I would say, that with the shift from television alone to then social media is that quest for clicks. And obviously sensationalism is what gets the clicks.
Yeah.
Even on a podcast, if there's someone there on a podcast that says something sensational, let's say, or controversial, that is the thing that's often cut and then posted out there. So it's almost like we're in this self-fulfilling prophecy of creating division because we're trying to create sensationalism, but actually what we're doing is removing the conversations. And I think certainly in writing, writing is a great way to communicate what's on your heart, what's in your head, and trying to join the dots. And I don't think there's enough conversations out there to say, well, if you've got a view on this, well, okay, that might be your one view on this, but now you can't have a view on anything else because it's got to be in line with this. And I'm saying, well, no, hang on a second. There was this thing where we could sit down and we could have conversations about multiple issues and then walk away and still be friends with that person.
100%.
Which is where I'm finding the press, the media, and whatever is like, no, you can't be friends with that person. You can't hang out with them. You can't talk to them. They're obviously that. They're obviously the enemy. And I was like, well, how did we get to here? And I think you're right. I mean, it's the change in media is almost magnified division rather than celebrate conversation. And I think I was talking to a lady who's used to work on the BBC and things like that, and she said that's the thing. So that we've lost the narrative of ideas. We don't discuss them anymore. We don't have the tolerance and we don't have the patience to process information and discuss it and then come to our own conclusions, because our own conclusions are only valid if you agree with me, and if they don't, then you're a horrible person.
Yeah.
And that's like, why did we end up there? It's frustrating.
I mean, I can't answer that question. I really don't know. And, I would just be speculating if I did. I think, I think that you mentioned about algorithms on social media. And I think that is possibly one of the reasons why we're so divided, is that when we used to just be watching the same TV shows as everybody else, we had a little bit more of consensus.
Yeah. And
now everything's isolated into our own personal bubble. And, psychologically, that's what feels comfortable, and very few people have that courage to go outside of their comfort zone and really challenge their own beliefs and see what's true and what's not true. And I think that social media is one of the reasons why we have such a divisive culture.
Yeah, I think you can, and that's the thing, isn't it? The algorithm is that it creates these echo chambers, because ultimately what happens is you end up with, like, if I click on a certain few videos, then I'm going to get fed that information. But if you're not balanced, as in you're looking at one side or the other, then all of a sudden you just solidify a position, and there's no conversation,
right?
You know, and I think that's where, can we not just remove the algorithm?
Yes, absolutely.
And the only reason they're there is for advertising,
yeah,
to be honest. But could we just not have any? You know, could we just have a platform that has no algorithms whatsoever?
Yeah.
And maybe that's a new social media platform that there is none. You know, we guarantee there's no algorithms.
Yes. Well, you know, we were talking off camera about like human only content, right?
Yeah.
And so with this age of AI, I think that we are going to be seeing these sorts of things, you know, where no device cafes, for instance,
yeah,
or, you know, completely human only content where things are being treasured, like artists are treasured. Yeah. And I think that we will be heading to a world where that's something that you pay extra for.
Yeah, it'd be like, you know, you sit down to go and do something and you're being invaded by multiple notifications.
Yeah.
But like, you know, you could go and do a music lesson and then go off grid for an hour.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's probably the hardest thing we can do in today's society, is to be present in the present.
Yes.
There's always something pulling us either from the past or from the future, like you're missing out or you need to get this done. Whereas in fact, that ability to go off grid and enjoy a concert, you know, without the videos and everyone holding the things up, is like, I just want to watch and be in that moment.
Yes.
I do think things are shifting that way, where people are starting to go, you know what, it's things need to change. Last thing I'll talk about though, which is what I saw the other day, was I think it was Meta. They've come up with glasses. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting for me is that when we take a picture of a birthday, we take a picture of you with a birthday cake, right? So it's a picture of you with your birthday cake, but that's not the view that you actually saw. But you just like, oh, it's a memory, it's me with my birthday cake. Isn't that brilliant? So what they showed was that they had these glasses on and they press record. So they got the birthday cake and they're looking at everybody around them as they're blowing the birthday cake. Now, what's amazing about that is that's what you see and that's what you remember. You don't remember the picture with the birthday cake. You remember everybody's faces in the room. So they just showed this on video and said, look, you can capture memories. And this person's there and you've got the grandma and the mum and your sibling and it's just a wonderful picture. But you're replaying that memory exactly how you see it because it's at eye level. And it just, for me, that's the shift I think a media is. It's about capturing moments, but capturing moments from your perspective. And you'd watch that video over and over again. You don't care about the birthday cake or what you look like. It was the people around you that were in the room to celebrate that occasion. And that's when I thought, well, maybe social media does have a bit of hope attached to it, because at the moment, I think it's the other way around. Let me show you what you're expected to see. Rather than with these glasses, when you're recording it, it's like, this is what the moment looks like for that person. Yeah. And it was a real shift. So there may be a shift where we actually don't have devices in our hands. Eventually it's all glasses, you know, and we're looking out that way. And we're all walking around with these big spectacles on or whatever. But I think one of the biggest things is to get rid of that thing in our hand.
Yes.
So if I've got rid of that thing in my hand, I'm no longer looking down. Now I'm looking up. So if I've got glasses, I'm looking up. And I mean, that's maybe a campaign. Look up.
Yes, look up.
Look
there
up.
You go.
Look up and see the world around you, because I think that's where we find ourselves right now. We're too many of us are looking down and the world's happening.
Yeah.
And before we know it, we're 80 years old and it's like, well, what happened? Well, that little screen that you've been consuming all that content, you can't remember anyway. So you've just wasted hours.
Yeah.
When in fact, putting that phone away and doing that music lesson or doing that creative writing course or, you know, going for that walk, surely that's a better human experience and everyone will be better for it, you know.
Yes, 100%.
So Ryan, how would people be able to get in touch with you?
So
and reach out.
Yeah. So you can follow me on LinkedIn, LinkedIn at Ryan Rubi. That's Ruby with an I. You can go on my website, ryanrubi.com. There you go.
There you go. Excellent. And yeah, connect to you on LinkedIn as well, yeah?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your story. There's a lot more than meets the eye, Ryan. You know, obviously I've met you at Humans a few times, but it's been a pleasure to get to know you, and we'd love to get to know your wife as well, to invite her on and have a chat as well, but hear the other side of the story. But thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Daryl.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to the Purpose People podcast. How you can help us is to like and subscribe our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to our podcasts on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Amazon. That helps us get our message out there to help people go after their dreams, double down on it, and be successful in life on their terms.